Say, can you see a bi-weekly, approximately, call-in cable access TV show that we've been doing for decades now. Our organization, the Society for Economic Equality, was founded by Frank Gerard, whom my guest Diane Baum and I were just discussing before we came on the air. He always used to refer to the gang that runs the show. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that here in the state of Michigan tonight. On our show, Messed Up Michigan, Twilight of the Empire. Herr Schneider, when he came into office, touted his credentials as an efficient manager, and now he claims to be incompetent but good-hearted. What kind of reaction do you have to that, Diane?
Well, I know in Forbes magazine, he was just voted one of the 16 most incompetent leaders in the world. And he was given he came in as #1, and he was given the Don't Blame Me, I'm Just the Governor award because of his actions having to do with the Flint water crisis, but it goes much deeper than the Flint water crisis, of course.
Well, it certainly does go much deeper than the Flint water crisis. To remind our viewers, the emergency financial manager law is what led up to the Flint water crisis. EFM was invented in order to remove democratic control from localities, a sort of internalization of the colonialization process. This idea, however, that to rank him as the most incompetent, I think, misses something else that may be, and I think is, going on, which is that it wasn't incompetent but intentional. There was the leak by that you reminded me of, by an EPA employee to the physician in Flint that tipped her off about the lead contamination of the people there, affecting most significantly children. It's my contention that it's clearly a crime of genocide, that it was intentional, along with the emergency financial manager law, to drive poor people, especially poor black people, out of this state. That has been effective. The percentage of African Americans in the state is down. We still have emergency financial manager and oversights that amount to much the same thing in places where emergency financial manager has been suspended. Benton Harbor would be an example where one of the most important political prisoners in the United States hails from, the Reverend Edward Pinckney, who was a guest at my home in Kalamazoo when I lived there. And I showed up at his protest against the EPA using Gene Clock Park. That was part of the corporate seizure of the commons in Benton Harbor. Emergency financial manager laws were used in Muskegon Heights to privatize the school system, and then the company that tried to do it pulled out because there wasn't enough profit in it. And so it was all a boondoggle. But I don't think that this is incompetence.
Well, you have to say that the people in Michigan voted, to overturn that emergency manager law. We voted, we won, and they didn't care.
They overturned our overturning of it.
That's right. In the middle of the night, like 2 days before Christmas or something.
And of course, Michigan has been identified recently as having the worst government transparency of all the 50 states. Our judiciary is ranked at the very bottom as far as judicial integrity. It's been called arbitrary and capricious. We've got continued cooperation with companies like Enbridge, who are criminally negligent in spilling crude oil of the worst type into the Kalamazoo River some years ago, and now claim that it's okay that the Line 5 under the Straits of Mackinac is 28% corroded. Apparently that doesn't seem hazardous to them. It sounds very frightening to me. I know that in structure, a 1/3 erosion is considered a failure. And so that's almost 1/3.
Well, it's a perfect place. You can pollute everything. You know, you can get both lakes at the same time. You know.
Well, that part of it does seem like a conundrum to me. Why the powers that be, the gang that runs the show, would risk polluting the Great Lakes, a quarter of the world's unfrozen fresh water, after all, and land that I think is grossly undervalued presently, considering the implications of climate change and how well positioned Michigan is to wait it out. And I think that's key to Herr Schneider's actions in this state, is paving the way for an entire takeover of Michigan as a corporatist, elitist fallback position during global climate change. And I'm even starting to see sort of visual evidence of that when I drive the highways and seeing like California license plates a lot, things like that. So I think some people have got the message that with desertification and sea level rise, Michigan in the future will be the best place to be.
Yeah, did you hear that that mid-March is when they measure the Arctic sea ice and Antarctic sea ice, and it's 1/15 of what it was last year.
Wow.
And I was just talking to Josh, who's up in the Arctic all the time, my son, and he said they're having a full-blown spring with flowers in bloom. He said they don't have spring in Alaska. It's cold, and then it melts. He said I said, oh, you got Michigan's spring that we don't have. Right?
Oh, aha, yeah, right.
The real spring.
Yeah, of course, the effects of climate change are seen most pronounced in the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Absolutely.
And that'll affect us eventually by people eventually waking up and probably in a crisis situation and wanting to move here. And I'm concerned that, for instance, the Joint Command Center in Battle Creek, one of the reasons it's positioned there strategically near the border is to fortify the border and eventually prevent climate change refugees from seeking refuge in Michigan. And they perhaps are counting on a cadre of paramilitary right-wing extremists, which seem to be unusually prevalent and proud lately. Or maybe I'm just noticing more the Confederate battle flag all over everybody's truck.
Along with the Trump signs. Right?
And the Trump signs, which is disturbing on a whole nother level.
Well, how are we going to get those people out and get the elite in? I mean, we don't want, the elite's not going to want to live next to the battle flags and the Trump signs and the shotguns, right? They don't want Michigan militia on their front steps.
Well, I think that the erosion of the wealth of the working class is doing that job for them. So, for instance, the closure of the Empire Mine in Ishpeming, which was just announced, means the loss of 400 well-paying blue-collar jobs. So a lot of those people, if they want to stay in mining, will move elsewhere, and they'll sell their land up in the UP, and it'll provide an opportunity for that property to be bought up. And if you notice, the Berkshire Hathaway company has bought big into Michigan real estate. And of course, that's the Wizard of Omaha. Oh,
Yeah, I know who you
it slips my mind now.
Oh, Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, and he's a bellwether for the investor class. So he's already signaled
He's
to buy
really
real
smart.
estate in Michigan.
Real smart.
Yeah, and so I think we are having a change of population, a program gentrification going on.
Well, I was at, I'm going to tell you a story. I was at an event. It was so many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, a long time ago, to take care of the Great Lakes. And this woman got up and she said she lived in Tennessee, and then when they were going to retire, her and her husband, she was very well dressed, nice person, nice looking. She said they looked all over the whole country for the best place to live, to move in their retirement, and they picked Holland, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And her words were, "You don't know what you have here, because you've got the water, and you have the farmland. You have everything."
That's right.
And
so there's an
she moved
irony.
here.
So there's an
And
irony
that's where
that
she came.
a recent survey showed people's own estimation of livability of their state, Michigan ranking 43rd. And perhaps that has to do with the suppression of wages and the horrible conditions of quite a few of our industrial cities. I recently moved from Kalamazoo, where it's got a Chicago problem with young, hopeless
They go to
youth.
Chicago?
Well, perhaps, but there's a sort of a regular series of
a Chirac.
senseless murders
Like a
in this,
Chirac.
like in Chicago, where the gun violence is so out of hand.
Have you heard that phrase, Chirac?
Oh yeah, exactly right, because it's a war zone like Iraq. This is a live call-in program. The phones are open. 459-4881 is our number. That's a 616 area code. In case you're watching over the live stream, we invite you to bring us your thoughts on this idea of messed up Michigan. Does it harbinger the decline and collapse of the empire, or is it its latest focus for absolute control and takeover? Another thing interesting to notice that's happened in the last few years is the union busting, the so-called right-to-work law, which had an interesting carve-out that the police union, because the excuse was that because their work is dangerous, that they could require union membership as a predicate for employment. Even though construction work, which I do myself, is more dangerous than police work, statistically, we didn't get such a carve-out. And of course, that's a classic police state move to give special rewards to the security class. I think the word maybe needs to get out to police, that just because it's called a police state, that doesn't mean it's good for you and your family.
I didn't know that they actually gave a reason for that carve-out. I had never heard.
Yeah, that was their excuse.
Oh, I didn't know that they had any
dangerous.
excuse. They just said that. I just remember that the police unions were not going to be involved in the union busting. You know, obviously.
Yeah.
You want the police on your side. You don't want them not on your side. For sure. Well, you know, the thing is that in West Michigan, we have this ecotopia here, and whenever people leave and come back, you ask them what they missed. They always say, "Oh, the apple cider, oh, the peaches, the blueberries, the beach." Yeah, it's just something wonderful that when they go somewhere, they realize they don't have here. You just, you know, and I mean, it's wonderful. West Michigan is a wonderful place.
Well,
The
the
other
whole of
places
the
in the
state.
state, maybe not so much. But
Well, certainly local conditions created by our own poor planning and even malicious intent. I mean, environmental racism isn't a made-up thing. You know, it's a
For sure.
well-documented occurrence that poor neighborhoods, especially poor neighborhoods of color, are subjected to, you know, the smelter and the pile of coke that they tried to, well, they did
pet
pile
coke.
the pet coke that they piled in Detroit for a while until that enough of a stink was made about the stink. Yeah, it just continues apace, and so, yeah, and that's why we're asking tonight on this show, Messed Up Michigan. Is it messed up on purpose? I mean, that's really the question. Can we really give the EPA, can we really give the governor, well, everybody who
A
should have,
pass.
the
Yeah,
DEQ, I give
lot of
everybody
blame-
who,
lot of blame to go around.
a lot of blame to go around. Can you give those people a pass, or do you have to say at a certain point, this is intentional at this point? It's either so negligent that it's criminally negligent, or it's intentional.
And then it's just criminal.
And then it's just straight up criminal. It's not
right.
criminal because you're a moron and you shouldn't have a driver's license. And like would be the example, like somebody who kills people with their car, not because they wanted to kill people, but just because they drove their car in such a reckless manner. So is the car of the state of Michigan being driven in a reckless manner by Herr Schneider, or is he purposely running down some of the citizens of Michigan in order to pave the way for a bright and shining gentrified future for cities like Detroit?
Well, as Forbes magazine pointed out, it's hard to say that it's not your fault when you specifically took all the responsibility away from the localities and said, it's only going to reside to the person I appoint, and the only person above them is me.
Right. So in other words, the relationship of power between the citizens, like in Flint and other places under EFM, is like the Palestinians to the Israeli state,
Well,
where they were helpless before they had no mechanisms of power themselves, entirely helpless before the decisions of emergency financial managers appointed by Herr Schneider.
yeah, it's hard.
The culpability seems so
Well,
obvious.
it's hard to plead that you're innocent when you took that power away from the civil authority and conferred it on yourself and your appointed ones or anointed ones. You can't plead that you don't have it.
And so in a civil society, if we had such a thing, it's my assertion, and I think other people have said it, Michael Moore, share, that Snyder would be arrested. He would be under arrest at this moment. Instead, we have the Reverend Edward Pinkney, who resisted emergency financial management in Benton Harbor, sitting in prison under trumped up, ridiculous charges.
Oh, and they tried to they made fun and tried to shut up people that blew the whistle on the Flint.
That's right. They went out of their way. And now, of course, the governor has used state money to hire PR firms and lawyers.
Actually, lawyers, not the PR firm came out of his personal slush fund.
PAC slush fund.
Yeah, actually. That's
But he does intend to spend state money, taxpayers' money,
to defend himself.
to hire lawyers to defend himself.
Right.
And today, just out, a group of Flint citizens have filed lawsuit against Snyder and his cronies under the RICO statute, and they think they
Explain
have
what
a
the
case
RICO
under
is.
a racketeering charge.
Can you explain what the RICO?
Well, RICO is the racketeering criminal organization statute that
how they got-
makes it an extra crime that you collude with others to do wicked things.
That's how they got Hoffa, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And yeah, that's right.
Good Michigan reference.
Okay, we have a phone call from Stephen. Stephen, what do you have to say about
Oh, hi, Rick. Hi,
Step
Diane.
Michigan?
Let me see if I've got your premise right. Rick Snyder is not one of the most incompetent executives in the world, and that he poisoned Flint and is destroying the Detroit schools and Muskegon Heights schools, et cetera, not out of mere incompetence, but out of a plan to destroy poor neighborhoods, to commit genocide, to displace African Americans, to make Michigan a safe haven for the winners of the global economy.
Yeah, that's an excellent synopsis of
Well,
exactly the point I'm making. I'm saying
Well,
that
you know-
he's a very competent manager in the on the order of Eichmann.
Aye, aye, aye. Well, there's an analogy to what you're saying in the way they're willfully trying to undermine democracy here in Michigan and the Republicans around the country. And we see that voter suppression isn't just for Republicans anymore, as in Arizona, but obviously all these recent laws, the gag rule against any public employees explaining ballot initiatives 60 days before elections.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was another example.
Destroying the right to vote on a straight party ticket is another thing to slow down
is.
voting, suppress
Yep.
voting, to make it more difficult to spoil ballots. They're doing everything that they can now while they have power in a gerrymandered system to destroy the democracy here. The analogy to the Emergency Manager Act. So if they're willing to destroy the democracy, then we see there the intention to collude to destroy the people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that you've summed it up really well. Everything from
Go ahead.
state government putting pressure on small agricultural producers, raising non-homogenized milk product kind of products, going after those people, but approving insanities like big fish farms on the Osabo River, which is one of the greatest trout streams on planet
Factory
Earth,
farm.
one of the greatest fishing areas, and it could be ruined by this approval. So we've got government agencies that are tasked with protecting the people and just seem to be part of the
Well, would you guys think that Hillary Clinton's position on fracking had anything to do with Bernie Sanders beating her in Michigan?
Well, I
Oh,
think that
sure.
may be that Bernie did well in Michigan because Hillary is clearly the Goldman Sachs candidate, and that means fracking, that means
Gas
commodification of the water, more contracts for Nestle to pump, and
Well, that would bode well for him doing well in both Pennsylvania and New York, which have seen the ravages of fracking even more than Michigan has.
yeah, that's true with the earthquakes and whatnot.
He certainly did well in Oklahoma. Well,
Oklahoma's earthquake.
the tainting of the water. Anyway, I'm really enjoying your conversation. I think you guys are really on something, and I just want to make sure.
Thanks for your calls, Stephen.
Hey, thank you. Thank
Well,
you, Rick. Thank you, Diane. Bye.
Thanks, Stephen. Speaking of fracking, that's one of the things that I read in Motor City Muckraker, that wasn't cutting costs that made Flint change its water. They're building this new pipeline into the Thumb, the KWA, is that KWA pipeline, and it's going to bring water in that's going to open up fracking.
Water
the
for
whole-
fracking.
Yeah, the whole Thumb area, and getting Flint on board with that is really crucial to having enough enough a really big community that's going to be going on board with the new pipeline. And so that's how Flint ended up with the poisoned water, because they're joining this new pipeline.
The plot thickens.
And the pipeline is to bring those millions and millions of gallons of fracking water in from Lake Huron to where they want to frack. So it's all of a piece. They're going to poison all our water.
And of course, the empire is also making Michigan a target for Islamic extremists by operating drone warfare out of Fort Custer. It's a legitimate military target from an Afghani or...
Where's Fort Custer?
Fort Custer, just outside of Battle Creek.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the name of it. I know that there's a place there.
Yeah, Custer, of course, was from Michigan, a horrible racist.
Michigan Cavalry.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, another aspect of seeing how austerity is being visited on the working class of Michigan is right here in Grand Rapids, with the bus drivers up against the wall with their pensions.
Right, they're gonna be
getting
stripped of their
support
pensions.
from Radical Student Group. What are they called?
Students Against Sweatshops,
Student Against-
USAS. United Students Against Sweatshops.
So they're the ones who have pioneered these boycotts of providers of official university gear that's made in sweatshops and forced the sourcing to change. So it's...
Yeah, and there are a lot of people. There's a lot of international support for the transit drivers in Michigan who are going to be deprived of their pensions, their pension plan, and at the same time, Peter Vargas, the head of the Rapid, our bus service, just got a huge raise. He's now making $200,000 more a year. While we can't honor the pensions of the drivers, and that's getting picked up all over the world.
Well, it seems like at the moment that we're in now, where the neoliberal myth ideology has essentially already collapsed. I think maybe that's seen in the phenomenon of the Trump candidacy. You have angry and Bernie Sanders. So from both angles, you've got people who are completely disaffected. I heard Rush Limbaugh say that Trump supporters should all just die.
No.
Yes, I did. I was scanning through the radio and I came across Rush, and there he was saying,
oh, it's so much more fun to listen to the Republicans these days than the Democrats.
The infighting, yeah.
Well, not only that, I was listening to Bernie Sanders.
This is a live call-in show.
I was listening to a Bernie Sanders speech after he won some caucus. I can't remember which one. And the NPR guys started talking over him, and then they just cut out on his speech. And I turned to the person I was with, and I said, I'll bet you the Republicans wouldn't do that. Turn the radio to Wood, which is a Republican station. The Republicans played the whole rest of its speech. NPR cut Bernie off. And it's just, that's just how it is. But it's really fun listening to them talk about Trump. They have no idea what to do.
Yeah, well, I think that
this.
the establishment is frightened. I think that a certain group of the financial elite have figured out that this brinksmanship of economic growth that degrades the biological basis of life on Earth.
I wanted to ask you to define neoliberal policies, because that's a hard one for people that don't know that term.
Well, neoliberal policies are essentially a reinvigoration of laissez-faire capitalism, in which it's believed that freedom should only be defined in the freedom of the players in the market to act freely within the market.
So
and it's driven these global trade policies, for instance, that have taken sovereignty away from traditional governmental bodies, local, regional, and national, and transferred that power to this corporate elite within these trade policies. That's what's so frightening about the TPP, which could, for instance, result in the commodification of all the Great Lakes water, which would be frightening for us.
Pretty nasty,
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've got. We've got water and we've got farmland.
We've got water and we've got farmland, but yet the people in the main continue to be unhappy. We have horrible infant mortality statistics for poor and especially poor colored communities in this state. We've got an increasing problem with racism against immigrants from the Middle East. We have Rick on the line, as this is a live call-in show, 459-4881. If you want to join Rick on OSE Can You See, talking about the messed up Michigan, Twilight of Empire. Rick, what do you have to say?
Can you hear me?
Sort of.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I cannot hear you very well. It's very quiet.
Speak up.
Yeah,
Hello?
that's better.
Hello?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm feeling the burn, and Rick, I haven't seen you since Khomeini left Sparta. It's been a while.
Since what?
That's a joke. Diane, I haven't heard you on Southpaws lately.
Oh, I don't call in much anymore, but I hear you regularly.
Yeah, I'm not calling Tyrone anymore, though. At any rate, I was just wondering, and this is probably a rhetorical question, but it just appears to me that even though Bernie is doing so well, much better than expected, you know, he's still trailing Hillary.
Not by much.
No, and then of course Cruz is winning lately. He's still way behind Trump, and I guess my question is, what is wrong with America? How two people like Hillary and Donald Trump are the two leading, you know, vote-getters in both parties.
Well, I would offer that what's wrong with America is that our existence our continued economic viability is due to our position as the global hegemon. So we're all beneficiaries of empire. We're all bribed into supporting this monstrosity, and so you get Trump and Hillary.
That's simple, huh?
Well, I don't think that that's real simple. I think that that's really deep. I think that people have a hard time thinking around how their bread is buttered. And so when they look around at how their wealth is maintained, they don't realize that the Seventh Fleet has a great deal to do with it.
Right.
And that many times in the last couple of decades, countries have moved to get off the dollar as a reserve currency, and at the moment that they do that, they're invaded the leader who suggested such a thing, like Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein. Who else did that? There's a couple others too that tried to get off the dollar as a reserve currency, which keeps our economy afloat. We all know that our economy is hollow now with the hollowing out of a real industrial base. You have the closing of one of the last iron mines up in Ishpeming. The iron smelters are already gone. We're told that we've developed new industries in Michigan, industries like gaming, in other words, gambling.
Beer.
And then beer, which is essentially providing more soma to the working class, so we don't realize our revolutionary power and realize the wonder that is these two peninsulas of Michigan, and realize that this is the key to the revolutionary struggle, to control the resources. If you look, for instance, at the civil wars, ongoing warfare in Sudan, in the new country of South Sudan, there's a continuing civil war. It's essentially over resources, and it's because of desertification there, which is due to climate change. And so the pressures of climate change will continue to make Michigan more and more of a jewel, and if the radical element on this planet wants to see the end of capitalism and its destruction of the ecosystem, it should seize the moment in Michigan. That's my thesis.
Because we're protected by the lakes, right?
But getting back to the, especially in the Trump situation, they talk about the people.
Well, we're
voting.
trying to talk about Michigan tonight more than about the Donald.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the Flint water crisis, maybe, or?
Yeah, we have been, and then if you have something to add to that, I would love to hear that.
I think Snyder should resign.
Absolutely, he should be imprisoned.
Maybe. Cher, the
I don't think
entertainer,
he
said
should
he should be executed. I don't know if I'd go that far. I think what he's guilty of is criminal negligence. I don't think this was an intent to poison.
Hold on, you have a
There's a
long
cover-up.
history in this country of so-called criminal negligence in which poor black people are repeatedly poisoned over and over and over and over again.
And shot.
At which point is it an intentional crime?
Well, I know, but Rick, are you actually saying you think that Governor Snyder purposely wanted to poison people of color in Flint on purpose?
Yes,
Planned?
that he intends to gentrify the entire state for the purposes of the health, convenience, and continuance of the ruling class on this planet.
You agree with that, Diane?
That he's on the that he's a war criminal, that he's a genocidal maniac.
Well, he can't be
yes.
a war criminal.
Yeah, he's carrying out a war against the poor of Michigan.
Well, I certainly can't disagree with that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think
he's
he
more
should-
of a commandante of a internment camp than a governor of a state. He doesn't represent you and me, Rick.
I didn't vote for him either time.
Rick, when he realized that the water was corroding the car parts in the GM plant, they got a special dispensation to go back to Detroit Water.
That's right.
When he realized that the employees of the state office buildings could sue the state of Michigan because they worked there and they had to drink poisoned water, they trucked in water. But did they do that for the people of
Or
Flint?
even inform them? No.
They kept saying it's okay. Up until January 2016, there was. In fact, I saw the image on was on the Michigan website, saying with little babies on it, saying it's okay to bathe your baby in your water in Flint. I mean, you know, this is years after everyone in Michigan knew there was a problem, and those places, both the State House and the GM plant, had gone off of Flint water. But it's okay for the children and the babies. That's fine. I am not going to sign a recall petition. I'm not going to carry one because I think that guy should be let out in a perp walk, not let out from his job.
I agree with that. I'm not going to sign a petition either. I think he should resign or I guess he could be impeached.
Well,
not
now
in Michigan.
you're counting on the
Not in
system to punish its loyal servants. The American empire is founded upon a racist ideology that, regardless of its pretensions to democracy, continues apace and has for 500 years.
Well, Snyder could be impeached, though.
Not in Michigan. There's no way to impeach
what
him.
legislature is going to do that? You have
I don't think there's a law.
Well, I'm
such
just
a
saying he could
backwards
theoretically be
legislature in
impeached.
this
It
state.
probably isn't politically feasible. No.
Can't be impeached.
No, if what has already occurred hasn't already resulted in that action, then it won't result.
Well,
in
it's
that
not
would
over.
have been something that would have happened quickly if it was going to happen at all.
It's not over yet.
And I think Snyder is definitely implicated in a cover-up, if not, deliberate poisoning, deliberate crime. He certainly tried to cover it up, having pretensions to a vice presidential candidacy. And I think that's what drove him. But that guy's career is
Well, I
over
think it's
now.
excellent how it illustrates the lie of the managerial style of government, that if you just turn it over to the experts who studied economics at the University of Chicago, everything will turn out just fine. That kind of economics is entirely passé, and nearly everybody has caught on to that. The late Peter Wege of Grand Rapids tried to teach us that. He wrote that book, Ecolonomics, or he tried to coin a term that's awkward, putting ecology and economics together and saying, well, it's one thing. And that's what, of course, the managerial class like Snyder try to ignore. We also have sulfide mining going on in the UP, very low labor style of mining in which they pump sulfurous water into the ground and get it to dissolve the copper and bring it up, and it creates cesspools of tailings that can escape into the environment, and they don't have to hire hardly anybody. So fire the miners who did it traditionally and do it toxic. We have one of the worst nuclear power plants still operating today in the United States, the Palisades.
Not very far away.
Just on the lake shore by Covert, just east of Kalamazoo. It was a lemon when it was built. It's been leaking radiation to the environment sort of at a trickle rate of some kind ever since then.
And Rick, did you hear Darren talking about those 13 school principals in Detroit being brought up on conspiracy and corruption charges?
Regarding what?
It was a scam by a company that supplied school supplies to children of Detroit. $5 million worth of school supplies.
I don't know. There's so much corruption going on. It's hard to keep track of it all, isn't there?
It's really rough. But anyway, 2.7 million of it never resulted in any school supplies getting delivered to the children of Detroit. But there were 13 school principals in Detroit that got kickbacks from that company to cover up the situation.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. People are so corrupt, and I guess most citizens kind of almost feel powerless to stop this sort of thing.
Well, like our founder, Frank Gerard, would remind us, this is just business as usual. This is how the gang runs the show.
How the game is played.
It's how the game is played. Gangsterism 101. This show is Messed Up Michigan, Twilight of Empire. It is a live call-in show on the 6th of April, 2016.
I'll sign off and let someone else call in.
4881 if you want to join Rick and our other callers.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks for calling in, Rick. It's nice to hear your voice after so long. Glad you're still paying attention. I hope others out there in our listening audience are paying attention to what's being done in Michigan. We've suffered some of the worst of the global downturn since 2008, or you could even say global downturn since 1972, when wages for labor went flat. Of course, it was the late Mr. Boggs, who was working in Detroit auto plant when the robots first arrived in 1972, and he predicted precisely what was going to happen to the industrial base of the United States and how it would be offshored and automated, and the economic leverage and political leverage of the working class would be undermined. Too bad he wasn't listened to. His widow recently died, Grace Lee Boggs. She led the struggle against this kind of corporatist state in Detroit for many years.
Well, speaking of Jimmy Lee, I just heard that the self-driving cars that they have now that work quite well, that the the job that most people have in America, especially most men, is as a driver. Some kind of driver.
Truck driver, Uber driver,
Bus
traditional
driver,
taxi.
Taxi driver.
Mm-hmm.
We drive. And what that's going to do is take away all those jobs, because the self-driving car works fine.
Yeah, right. And all those truckers and yeah, the under capitalism, the human being becomes redundant. Only the owner of the capital becomes crucial. I mean, that's the real tragedy that we're facing here, is that the gang that runs the show on this planet created the situations in which climate change will start to affect all of us. They're entirely responsible for driving the whole process, and their intent is to ride it down and stay on top as it collapses beneath them. And they intend to do that in Michigan, and I'm convinced of that.
Keep their money in offshore havens. Did you hear about?
Oh yeah, the recent data dump
Panama,
and the
yeah.
Panama Papers. That's
Panama
right.
Papers.
No, that's a big break.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating, and
how you launder your money
mm-hmm.
in the British Virgin Islands to make sure that the money that comes back, and some of that's being laundered in Michigan, I heard too.
Well, sure, sure.
Definitely.
The point that really came home to me concerning wealth in the form of liquid cash and money is that if you add up the great fortunes of the world, it adds up to many generations of everything that is produced on this planet, both human and natural production. So every blade of grass is essentially accounted for. There's cash in reserve in those great fortunes to ensure that that's a wholly owned subsidiary of the ruling class. I think that we are at a point now where a realization of that disparity of the holdings of wealth should get us to the point where we're ready to collapse the currency and not recognize those numbers that they have on those logbooks that say they have so and so many billions to buy so and so many mercenaries to ensure that democratic institutions can never take hold again.
Well, I think that Rick, really does have a point that both Trump and Bernie are people that, on Trump's side, they're looking at the trade deals. This Donald keeps saying, "I'm going to make a better deal. You got a bad deal," and
Rush says that they didn't get a bad deal. They're just losers, and that's why they deserve to die. That social Darwinist thing. And Bernie is appealing to other people who feel disenfranchised from the system, but who don't necessarily turn to like racist analysis, blaming it on Mexican immigrants or whatnot that you find among the Trump supporters, which seems to be quite frightening. We have a few more minutes left in our show, Messed Up Michigan, Twilight of Empire. I still believe that Detroit is the city on planet Earth with the most revolutionary potential.
Yeah.
If people who think that they're politically radical, living out west, drinking the Colorado River for some unknown reason, or living near the seacoast, could see it, I think we could change the demographics. I haven't checked recently how it's been working most recently, but it's been working in Vermont for the Libertarian Party. They've been inviting people to move to Vermont to change the demographics so that the Libertarian Party can demonstrate the kind of government, kind of society they would create, whatever. I think that a revolutionary working class...
Is that Vermont or New Hampshire? Live Free or Die is New Hampshire's.
I thought it was Vermont, but I might be wrong. It might be the New Hampshire that they've been going. Anyway, that's the Libertarians, not my business. But look it up yourself. This is OSE, Can You See, a production of the Society for Economic Equality. organization founded to find some kind of meaning in struggle. And we've been making these TV shows faithfully for years, mostly aimed at bringing down military-industrial death culture. Some shows just goofy.
They said that Detroit was the most beautiful city, and Flint was also a very beautiful city. And now they're sacrifice zones, right? They're being sacrificed to the elite.
Well, you know, it's a boast of capitalism that it's creative destruction. In fact, that's the consolation that your mainstream economist gives you. So don't worry that you've lost your livelihood and your home and everything.
And your planet.
Your planet, the economy will find a solution through that
Your lake.
through the magic of the market.
Your water.
Yeah, and of course that's the fundamental problem, is that capitalism actually plays down the natural capital, the social capital of the world, and has done that exquisitely in Michigan. But it doesn't seem to me to be random. It does seem to be intentional. It does seem to be, I don't know, I guess I give the gang that runs the show some credit. Gangsters know how
Not
to be
stupid.
gangsters. They're good at their business.
You know that if it was Bloomfield Hills or some rich East Grand Rapids, the problem with brown, smelly water that gave you rashes and
Yeah, well, of
poisoned your
course.
children would be a problem. It would take less than 2 years.
Well, and of course, when the
to deal
water
with
was
that.
converted for the city of Flint, it wasn't converted for the suburbs of Flint. So
They're still on Detroit water.
they never switched.
That's right.
So again, to say that this is like sort of a random accident of some level of incompetence,
Gee whiz.
mistakes happen, isn't tenable. When, like you brought up, water is delivered to state workers in the city of Flint while the children are poisoned.
And the GM plant
this
is
is
corroding the auto parts.
or when it's corroding the auto parts. No, this has all the hallmarks of crimes against humanity. It's, I guess, not surprising in a world where the official report on what happened on 9/11, 2001 is
Oops.
somehow
It's an
believed.
oops.
It's a big oops, and somehow,
Conspiracy theorist.
oh my goodness, yeah, right. If you point out, for a long time, of course, the FBI denied that there was such a thing as organized crime, and these days, if you point out organized crimes among the global elite, you're denounced as a conspiracy theorist, and so not to be listened to, even though it's obvious we were all robbed in 2008 by the global banking establishment.
Well, we'll just bail them out.
HSBC, a big international bank.
They're Swiss bank.
The Swiss bank, they were fully implicated in laundering money for the global drug cartels, and none of them went to prison. Our former attorney general even made it official policy that some people are just too rich and powerful to jail, that if your arrest could
Or
affect
fail.
the market, could cause the investor class to lose confidence, then you can't be arrested. That was what he said.
Can't fail, can't jail.
Can't fail, can't jail. And this kind of outrage, does lead to some people supporting Trump. Other people have turned to Bernie, and I did vote for him in the primaries, but I'm doubtful of that route towards change.
Well, did you hear what happened in Iceland yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
That was a nice bright spot in the
Well,
world.
now, of course, in Iceland, they had already jailed their bankers
right.
when the crisis occurred.
They threw yogurt at him. I thought that was a good touch when they got in the street at their CEO.
Yeah, don't try to throw yogurt around here. You'll be Gitmo-ized for being a terrorist. We have 2 minutes to credit, so if there's anyone out there who's just itching to talk
Say
about
something.
messed up Michigan, Twilight of Empire, speak on the CTV television show, Oh Say Can You See, the most venerable cable access program on GRTV, then please call now, 459-4881.
So have we talked about all the places in Michigan?
No, we didn't mention line 5.
Line 5.
Oh, no, maybe we did, though.
I don't
28%
think so.
corroded?
No, we didn't talk about that.
Okay. Line
about
5
line
run
5.
by Enbridge Corporation, which spilled a bunch of highly corrosive petroleum product into the Kalamazoo River several years ago. Was given the okay by the DEQ to continue to pump oil through a pipe under the Straits of Mackinac that's 28% corroded. Sounds real risky with such wonderful water.
Well, and that's it's pumping tar sands, which is very corrosive.
Which was the
oil.
same stuff they spilled in the Kalamazoo River.
Right, absolutely. And Hillary voted to extend that.
Well, Hillary is the mining, banking
The Queen?
candidate.
Yeah, what Chris says,
Join us
she never
again
met a
for
check she
Oh
didn't
Say
like.
Can You See, more source for revolutionary fervor. It's great. Thank you, Diane, for joining me tonight. Thank you to our callers for participating. Let's all hope that